our grandparents were living in a completely different food landscape from us. So they might have eaten bread, but the availability of ultra-processed food to them was very low, if not absent, depending on our age and depending on the era that our grandparents were living in. On the whole, our grandparents were more physically active than we are. They had different lifestyles. They might have gone to bed earlier, for example. Okay, so lots and lots of things have changed. All of those things combined would mean that our grandparents generally were more sensitive to insulin than we are. So I'll tell you what I mean by that. If somebody today, particularly somebody whose weight is higher than they want it to be, if they eat the bread, they have insulin resistance. They're not sensitive to insulin. So their blood sugar goes up and they need to produce quite a lot of insulin to move that sugar out of the blood, overcome the resistance. Your grandparents would not have had that resistance to insulin for all those reasons I listed. Their body weight was lower, more physically active, etc. So in response to the bread, they would produce less insulin, and therefore the bread would be less fat storing in them. The good news is that when we end up a bit more like our grandparents, by following the full diet, we can have a bit of bread too in the future. Does that make sense? Because it's very technical, but that's the reason.
It does, and it leads into the question I wanted to ask you, which is what the intention time-wise is for the programme. Is the intention that people pick up the book or begin the programme and never look back, or do they do it for a certain amount of time and then how does that work?
Yeah, so the intention is that it's a lifestyle change. And exactly the same ways you might decide to become a vegan or a vegetarian, that's not something you just sort of do for a bit. Most people will want to commit to that long term for the reasons that are important to them. So that if you want to sort of long term keep your weight where you want it to be, improve your health, maybe reverse any health conditions that you have more energy and so on and so forth, this is a kind of long term series of lifestyle changes. And that's the way my patients very much kind of view it. They say every day I'm doing it and I'm committed to it. Many have done it for many years with great success. So it's really not something that you just sort of do for a bit, cast aside and kind of go back to business as usual, because I would assume, as I assume in my patients, that the reason you're either joining the program with me or reading the book is that business as usual does not feel good. So therefore, if you want to make changes, it's so much more motivating to think I'm doing this for the long term, for lots of improvement going forward.
And that's really helpful. As I knew, it would be lots of questions already coming. So I'll try and sort of, obviously there are a lot of different aspects of the book.
Yeah.
As you've said, it's not just about food, but I'm going to just ask you this question. I think it's really given the news this week that we have calories now.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could explain, why it is so misguided and rather pointless. As if the aim was weight loss, it's just not the right way about it.
You mean putting calories on the menu?
Yeah.
Okay. So
or just generally, I mean, obviously speaking to the book, counting calories.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to tell people as the gee whiz fact to begin this answer is this: that on average in our research study, people lost as much weight as if they had had gastric band surgery. The word calorie was never mentioned in our program. And in fact, I said to my patients, who all have an encyclopedic knowledge of calories, as many of us do, that you can free up that precious headspace for something else. This knowledge is not useful to you. And there are reasons for that. The first is the calorie count tells us nothing about the quality of the food that you're eating and what that food metabolically does to your body. So I give the example in my book that let's say you're on a low calorie diet, as many people watching will have tried. And let's say your calorie allowance is something like 1,500 a day. And you see this diet yogurt and it's 100 calories. You go, cool, that's just a drop in the ocean of my 1,500 limit. Let's look at the ingredients. Usually 20, sometimes more odd ingredients. Because it's 100 calories, the fat's been taken out, it's been replaced by bulking agents and thickeners. They've got to keep the calorie count down, so lots of artificial sweeteners and so on. It's 100 calories, but does it feel good for your body? What is the quality of that food? Or you could use your 100 calorie allowance and you can eat a boiled egg, as I say in the book. What are the ingredients? Egg. Human beings have eaten eggs for probably tens of thousands of years, and it suits us and our body knows what to do with it. So the calories tell us nothing about the quality of the food or how our body responds to that food. The egg fills us up, so nobody comes to my clinic saying, well, when I eat boiled eggs, I just can't stop. You can have 1 or 2, and then those fullness hormones from your gut will go up to your brain, I'm full, I'm done, I can move on. Most of us will recognize you eat the 100-calorie diet yogurt, the spoon hits the bottom of the pot, and you're thinking, what's next? And even because you don't release those fullness hormones, so 2 foods with the same calorie content, your body responds very, very differently to them. That's the first thing to say. The second thing to say is that if you are calorie counting, you tend to be on quite a restrictive regime. So you've said to yourself, I'm going to limit myself to this number of calories every day. And the problem is your body has no idea that you are deliberately sort of semi-starving yourself, because throughout human history, that never happened. The problem was food scarcity, not food excess. So we have evolved something called the starvation response, which served us well for tens of thousands of years, when the buffalo weren't running, berries on the bushes. So that when you semi-starve yourself on a low-calorie diet, that starvation response comes into play. Your body says, I've got to stay alive. So the amount of hunger hormone that your stomach releases increases. The fullness hormones released after you eat are dialed down. So you're never quite satisfied. You're always a bit nervy and thinking, oh my God, when can I have lunch? Or, it's like 10 o'clock. Everyone has lunch at 10 o'clock, and you can't sleep. You're preoccupied by food. You're preoccupied by finding food. And those are all hardwired changes that mean low-calorie dieting can't work. And my final reservation, as I mentioned at the start of the answer, is that people know that a pizza is a high-calorie food. And so seeing that on a menu, I don't know whether that informs the choice. People are really smart. They know. So I'm not sure that putting a number, especially if you're sort of going out and it's a treat and it's a big deal and it's a meal out, I'm not sure that kind of adds to the conversation. So I have all those reservations, but I'm always an optimist. I think, Hannah, hopefully you'll have kind of felt when you read the book that I'm positive. I'm always an optimist, glass half full person. So I am glad with the calories on the menu that has brought us talking about weight and the nation's health, because definitely this week we've kind of that volume has been turned up because of this calories coming on menus. So maybe that's the kind of silver lining.
Brilliantly clear answer, of course. So one of the chapters is about gut bacteria.
Yeah.
And the book, people will have noticed, with brightly coloured. I don't know if this is in all the books, but there's sort of pages.
Yes.
And you say that if our kind of gut bacteria had a motto, it would be diversity, and that rainbow, the variety is all important. So I wonder if you could tell us about that, because you said you're positive, and to me that's a positive way of looking at it.
Yeah, that's right. So we all have about 100 trillion bacteria that live in our gut, and the main reason they live in our gut is because they want the food that we eat. So when you're eating, you're not just eating for one, you're eating for 100 trillion. That is the best way to look at it. And the reason that you kind of need to pause and think, what am I feeding these little guys, is because they have a profound impact on our health. Really strong science on this, how they affect even things like our mood, our anxiety levels. But from the field that I'm in, they have a profound effect on appetite and weight and blood glucose control. So it's really important to look after them. You don't want to annoy them, because otherwise we have problems. So I give advice in the book about how do you feed them and nurture them in such a way that they will produce substances that make you feel full. They do that. And they particularly do that when we eat fiber. And they particularly are happy when they are a diverse population, meaning lots and lots of different sorts of gut bacteria. Because the pattern that we tend to see in the West, the source of ultra-processed diet lots of people are eating, is the diversity of the bacteria is really, really reduced compared to populations who eat a more traditional diet. So that diversity is really key for a healthy gut bacteria. So eating a rainbow, as you pointed out, the rainbow inside the book, the rainbow on the front of the book, that means when you look at your plate, because it's so good for your gut bacteria, does it look bright and cheerful and colourful? Or does it look really kind of beige and white? And so when it looks cheerful and colourful, you're eating, I don't know, things like red peppers or celeriac covered in turmeric or something like that, then you're really doing your gut bacteria a favour. The bottom line is really and truly fibre as well. And then there's a few things you're really going to annoy them if you feed them. And those are things like emulsifiers and artificial sweeteners. There's good science about how they really get fed up with that. So work in harmony with your 100 trillion friends down in your gut, and then you'll be working together in terms of trying to lose weight or other health improvements.
Oh, I wonder where to go next. There's so many options. But I think let's go to sleep, because let's go to sleep. Not quite yet.